Shalom, shalom. First, I want to start off by giving all honor, praises, and infinite glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. I want to give double honors unto the elders, apostles, and bishops, the GMS Great Millstone, who rule well, teach, and edify, and peace and blessings to you, sincere Akim, while Akwat in his household of faith. My name is Yeshaya. I'm a GMS Arizona Church in Ottawa. Ratazal, going to make an edifying video. Just going into this quick headline. This is Big Tech has started targeting Native American land for massive AI data centers. And this speaks volume about the nature of this devil, man. This devil came here, guns blazing, and just raped, robbed, and murdered his way into establishing, this country, man. And that's ultimately the spirit of Esau Edom, okay? This man has no moral compass, and he should not be trusted. Esau will tell you one thing and then flip it back and say he never said it. Esau will be on your side until he's able to, coax you into, being a target. That's the spirit that's going out right now, man. These devils trying to start a race war. These devils out there pushing and stirring the pot, with these different scenarios of, these so-called black men, being in groups with Edomites, Esau, and them getting disrespected and whatnot, and doing this and that, and ending up dead. These things are happening for a reason, man. The spirit's conjuring up. There's going to be a whole lot of twisting and turning, coming up soon, man. With the way the Esau's came down on Issachar, he's came down, and he's going to come to all the tribes at the end of the day, man. This is Isaiah 59:19. Okay? Because them putting those AI data centers on Native American land, just basically proves that these devils don't stick by their word, because they gave them that land, and now they have to go through certain, avenues and functions, to whether they're allowed to or not allowed to put them on that land. But they don't care. They've already bypassed certain laws and legislators so that they can, on a federal level, they can establish those AI data centers wherever they want to. Okay, they've already pre-established those, rules. While you're worried about the World Cup and shit like that, they're legitimately making, unrighteous decrees so that they're able to move forward with this NWO, which is what we're hoping for, man. We understand that, the mandation of the RFID micro CIP is, coincides to right when the Lord's going to be coming back. Okay? We want these devils to, come and do these things, man. But, constantly be circumspect about, the people around you, the things around you, and the nature of this devil. Be not ignorant to Satan's devices, man. So it's Isaiah 59:19. It says, "So shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun, when the enemy shall come in like a flood." And the thing about a flood, the elder Tazabah of the GMS Arizona Church, he highlighted the fact that, a flood doesn't just come at you from one direction. It comes at you, from all different directions slowly until, you can't breathe no more, man. Look at how if you was in a ship and you was in a cabin in the ship, the water would surely come from the door, but then it's going to come from the window, and then it's going to come through the cracks, and all of a sudden, it's all water. So we have to be circumspect about how this devil's moving. He got entertainment booming on the left-hand side. He got all kinds of streamers and folly, music, events, and all this bullshit going on. And then he's out there in the Middle East causing havoc. And then it's going to be, our food systems aren't going to be reliable. All these things are getting set up. There's so many more things. The RFID microchip is being mandated. It's in that process of them thinking about, okay, we're going to do this and that and this, and get people to go on there. They're already taking it in Sweden. There's already people taking it now, and it's only going to, it's going to be a wildfire, once that standard is set up. Look at computers, look at steam trains, look at the different industrial revolutions, the major technological revolutions, how quickly they came about. When the first smartphone came out, it was like the early 2000s. And then now you got your smartphone talking to you. Like, that's the thing. This stuff can happen quick. And the Lord is really going to push that spirit, to make it, hasten the day. Because at the end of the day, it says, if the end don't come, no flesh shall be saved, roughly paraphrasing. And no flesh shall be saved. So if these devils keep on staying in this, in rulership, everything's going to be through. But, so, the enemy shall come in like the flood. The Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. Okay, but the Lord's going to be able to come through. He's going to come through as for his elect. This is Psalms chapter 10, And we'll just start at we'll start at the top. It says, "Why standest thou far off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble? The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined." Jake always has that doubting spirit, like as if it's not going to happen in our lifetime, as if these things aren't true, as if, America could bounce back. These things are not, said in the scriptures just because, it's said because the Lord is going to establish those things. We understand that, all hell's about to break loose here, and it's going to happen as a thief in the night. The Lord said that, when everybody else is sleeping, bullshitting, as in the days of Noah, when everyone was partying, giving in banquets, giving into marriage, that flood came. Okay. And that's exactly what the Lord is establishing now again. That's why we have to be sober, be vigilant, because Satan, our adversary, walketh about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. As it says in 1 Peter 1:18. But verse 3, it says, "For the wicked boasted in his heart's desire, and boasted the covetous, and blessed the covetous, whom the Lord abhorreth. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after the Lord. The Lord is not in all his thoughts." He doesn't care. His moral compass is completely extinguished. He doesn't care who he hurts or how he has to hurt him. He just cares about, furthering his enterprise. As it says in Job, I believe it's the 20th chapter, it says that the height of his sufficiency, he shall be brought in straits. So once this devil thinks that he's gotten everybody hemmed up, once he thinks that he's able to move in with that NWO, then, the Lord's going to make that intervention. And we're going to need divine intervention, man. It's going to be tough, the times that we're entering into, and, they're going to get at you tribes, man. Gad's not going to be happy. Gad don't even like when a white person's on the reservations. There's certain reservations that they don't like any non-native person to even go on there. Some in certain parts of the United States, and they ultimately coming for all the tribes, man. They coming for all the tribes, all you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and even you speckled birds out there. It's all a spiritual thing at the end of the matter, But it says, "His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are above all in his sight. For as for all his enemies, he puffeth at them." So it says, "Yet they succeed in everything they do. They do not see your punishment awaiting them. They sneer at all your enemies." So this devil is pride, man. That Obadiah 1 and 2 spirit, thy pride hath deceived thee. It says that they think nothing bad will ever happen to us. We will be free of trouble forever. Their mouths are full of cursing, lies, and threats. Trouble and evil are on the tips of their tongues. And that's what we're seeing now. That they think that their houses are going to dwell forever. They think that they can say and do whatever the hell they want to. It says they lurk in ambush in the villages, waiting to murder innocent people. They are always searching for helpless victims. And even, going back into the Georgia Guidestones, how they want that, standard of 500 million people. There's 8 billion, damn near 9 billion people on this earth. This devil has a disposition to kill many, many people. Okay, he's going to set up a technocracy. He's going to set up a society where you have the elites and then you have everybody else under them. It's no longer going to be social classes. It's no longer going to be first, second, third world shit in his society, man. They're aiming towards elites and every other sheep person under there. And that's their disposition. These juice boxes, these small hats think that, sitting there thinking that they could do whatever the hell they want to do. They know they're not the true people of the Lord, but they still put on that pride, and that's why we have to really be circumspect about, letting these type of people in our lives, man, and circumspect about what the hell they're doing around us. We're not able to go all the way up into the sky, where the chariots are and see, certain things that he's doing up there. We're not able to go to certain parts of the ocean and, take a look at the data centers and shit. We're not able to even see a lot of the data centers that he's establishing, within all the warehouses that have no windows, and the underground things that he builds. There's so many things that he's established that we cannot physically see, but we know through the spirit that they are there, and his devil is plotting. It says, "The lion croucheth in hiding, they wait to pounce on the helpless. They hunt Salakia. Like hunters, they capture the helpless and drag them away in nets." And as the scriptures say in Ecclesiastes, it says, "As a fish is caught in an evil net." If you're not circumspect about, what's going on, then you're going to be that fish caught in an evil net. You're going to be, in a real bad place, and you're not going to be able to get out of it, man. And the Lord's going to really trap a lot of those people that aren't being circumspect, man. Especially being the fact that this word has gone out. This word isn't going out for no reason. The Lord isn't establishing his men upon this earth and speaking this truth for no reason at all. You know, this is that warning. This is that, you know, the prophets of doom, as they would say. You know, they're always saying, oh, you know, something bad is going to happen. That's facts. Something bad is going to happen. That's what has been established all throughout the different societies on this earth. The Lord has sent prophets before doom. They told Jake to get right. They didn't fucking get right. And then they said certain doom is going to come. You know, and they also prophesied against Babylon. This is let's get this. Jeremiah 28:8. Got to get this one. Jeremiah 28 and verse 8. And it reads, it says, the prophets have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, of war and evil and of pestilence. The prophets which prophesied of peace, when the world of prophets shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known that the Lord Yahweh hath truly sent him. Okay, the Lord has sent men upon his earth, beginning with our elders on down, you know, to preach this truth, man, to speak this truth and warn you, Jakes, of the things that are coming and tell you who you are. You know, now we know who we are. You know, the Lord is gathering his elect, you know, and it's only a point in time before all this, you know, for that tension finally snaps and all this shit gets to cracking. It says their helpless victims are crushed. They fall beneath the strength of the wicked. The wicked think the Lord isn't watching us. He hath closed his eyes and he won't even see what we do. Arise, O Lord, punish the wicked. O Lord, do not ignore the helpless. Why do the wicked get away with despising the Lord? They think Yahweh will never call us to account. But you see the trouble and grief they cause. You take note of it and punish them. The helpless put their trust in you. You defend the orphans. You know, because, you know, we've been turned back into the Lord, man. You know, there was a time when we was bastards, but, you know, through that adoption, through the blood of a Mashiach, we've been brought back into our heritage, man. You know, and that's a blessing. You know, we understand too that there's a divide between us and the rest of the world. That's why the scripture said that there's, you know, the three parts of man. The sons of Yahweh, the sons of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, the sons of man, and the sons of the wicked. The sons of man will be the heathen nations. You know, the sons of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua will be the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, and the sons of the wicked is Esau, Edom, and his nations. Okay, it says the Lord is for says break the arms of the wicked, evil people, go after them until the last one is destroyed. The Lord is forever king and forever. The godless nations will vanish from the land. You know the hopes of the helpless. Surely you will hear their cries and comfort them. You will bring justice to the orphans and the oppressed, so mere people can no longer terrify them. But yeah, facts, man. I pray this lesson was edifying. I want to lastly give all honor, praises, and infinite glory to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua B'Shem Rakakwadash.